Hey Savvy people, it's Savvy Nick here, and today we'll be going through how to install Arch Linux. We'll first download it, then I'll explain how to flash it onto a disk. We'll boot the disk and finally run through how to install it on an empty storage space of your choice. So Arch Linux is an independently developed Linux distribution that focuses on simplicity and is meant more for advanced users. This install will be different than the typical graphical installer, so you'll have to have some familiarity with a terminal and terminal commands. The very first thing we're going to do is go ahead and download it. I am on the archlinux.org website. I'll put a link in the description below. The first thing we'll do is when we're on the home page, let's just go surf into the download page here. We can see what the latest kernel available is, and the latest download is going to be towards the bottom here. So let's scroll down a little bit and find a mirror where you can download from that's closest to you, so whatever country that you live in preferably. I am here in the United States, so I will search for the United States. Here we go. So I've downloaded it before, but let's just go ahead and select a download. So I just selected this before, so I'll do it again. This is the 3264-bit support ISO, so I'm going to go ahead and download that. And as you click it, you will automatically start your download. This might take a few minutes, and after this, we'll go ahead and flash our ISO file onto a USB CD or DVD of our choice using a application that can flash. I like to use Balena Etcher, and I'll put a link in the description below if you want to go ahead and download that. You can also use other tools such as UNetBootIn or anything else that can go ahead and create a bootable disk for Linux. I'll let you go ahead and do your own research for that. Now that I've downloaded ISO, I'm going to launch the Balena Etcher app. Again, I put a link in the description below if you'd like to go ahead and download the app. Balena Etcher is nice to use because it's very simple to use, as well as available for Windows, Mac, or Linux. You can go ahead and download it and use it, or use another type of bootable disk creator. What we'll do after the Balena Etcher app has launched, I'll go ahead and put an empty USB stick in the computer that we're working with and flash the image on the USB in order to create a bootable disk. And then I can place that in my desktop or laptop of my choice and install it on Arch Linux. The first thing I'll go ahead and do is select an image, and that image is going to be the ISO file that I downloaded earlier. So I'll go ahead and select this, hit open. Then as far as a target, I'll go ahead and insert my USB now. And once that USB is inserted, you'll get a similar icon like this. You can see that I have a SanDisk Cruiser USB stick that went ahead and automatically populated here, and it's 8 gig. If yours doesn't automatically populate, you can hit the change button and find your USB stick that you inserted. Go ahead and flash. If you went ahead and made it this far, please take a moment to like the video. It would be greatly appreciated by me. Again, Arch Linux is more for advanced users, where the setup is quite a bit, let's say, harder than some of the other Linux setups. It does not have a graphical installer, and you get to select any and all packages that you want with it, and you have to manually install the base system and get files ready. So it's going to be a bit involved here. Once we have this disk flashed, we'll go ahead and place the USB CD or DVD that you're flashing to into the computer that you would like to go ahead and install Arch Linux on, and then you'll get it booted up by going into your boot order in BIOS. You'll have to look it up for this system that you're using. Some common keys are the F2, F8, F10 key in order to get into BIOS while first booting up your system. And then you'll find a tab with a name such as boot order, and you'll select and move the boot order up for the USB CD or DVD drive that you have in your computer. That way the disk boots first, and if you've done that correctly, you will get a similar screen to this. So I'm going to be running through the Arch Linux installation guide for the most part here. So if you need any more information on a specific part of the install, you can always refer back to their documentation, which is available on their wiki site under the archlinux.org. You can also just go to the description below. I'll have a link there. We'll go ahead first select the boot arch linux x86_64 option. And we'll give it a few moments to load up. And once you get the terminal prompt here, we'll first make sure we can ping archlinux.org to make sure we have an internet connection, since the install will require us to use an internet connection for some packages. So go ahead, press enter, and wait a moment here while it does its thing. And once you get a confirmation, you'll see something similar to this. It's going to say that you're receiving 64 bytes back from the archlinux.org website. And if you see this, you have a successful connection. If not, go ahead and troubleshoot your network for problems. Then the next thing is to make sure we update the system clock to make sure it's accurate. We'll do this by doing time date CTL here, set-ntp to true. Once we do this, we'll go ahead and confirm by doing time date CTL status. And now the status says that the system clock is synchronized and that the NTP service is active. So we are good to go here. Next, let's go ahead and check and see what disks have been recognized by the system and what we can use. We can do this by doing fdisk space -L. And you can see we have what seems to be 2 disk spaces here. The one we want to focus on here is this first one that says the dev SDA, so /dev/SDA. There's 64 gigabytes available. That's the size of this fresh new SSD that I have inside my computer with nothing on it, and you want to make absolutely sure that there is nothing on it, because this will erase everything on that disk. I don't suggest doing this on a computer that has something already installed on it. Go ahead, try this out with something that has nothing on it first, and then get acquainted with how to go ahead and install Arch Linux before you go ahead and do something more advanced like that. What we have here, it says 64 gigabytes available, then the amount of bytes and amount of sectors, and what the model is, and a couple more things here. So now we'll go ahead and choose what type of disk layout we'd like to use. I'll go ahead and just create 2 partitions, one for the Linux base system and one for the Linux swap. We can do this by using fdisk again. Let's do fdisk, and we're going to have to remember this /dev/SDA, because that's where our install is going to take place. So if we do fdisk /dev/SDA and hit enter, we'll get into the fdisk utility command prompt, where you can go ahead and press M for help at any time. And the first command that we want to do is N for a new partition. And it's going to ask us what type of partition do we want to create, a primary or extended. We'll do primary for this one, P. Then select the partition number. You can have 1 through 4, it says. The default's 1. Default's fine. I'm going to put in 1 anyway. Hit enter. The first sector is going to start at 2048 by default. We don't want to go before this because we can mess stuff up if we do. So the default's fine. Just press enter. And now we get to select how big this partition is going to be. I'm just going to use 32 gigs out of the 64 so I can install something else on it later. So if you do the plus or minus size and then KMGTP, that's a little bit of a shortcut there. So I'm going to do plus 32G, capital G. That will give me 32 gigabytes from the initial sector 2048. It'll just add 32 gigs for this partition. So after I've hit enter, it says it's created a new partition, 1 of type Linux, and the size is 32 gigabytes. So that's good. Next, let's go ahead and just do p enter, and this will tell us, again, kind of a confirmation that the device that we have is a partition under /dev / SDA1. The start sector is 2048, and you see the number there. How many sectors are used up, what the total size is, and the type of partition that we have, hex83 or Linux type. Following this, let's go ahead and create our swap partition. What we'll do here is, again, very similar, do n, and let's go ahead and just create an extended one instead, just for something different here. The partition number is 2. It also defaults to 2, so you could just press enter, but 2 is, I'm going to type 2 in myself. After you've pressed enter, it's going to start the first sector where you left off on the last sector. So you can see this number here, and it says the default is the 67 whatever number here, 67110912. I will go ahead and use the default. So basically I'm starting from where I ended in the last partition, and we're going to attach swap to the end of it. Here again, we'll select a size. You don't need much for your swap size. I'll let you decide on that. I'm going to go ahead and just use 2 gigs for my swap size. So +2 capital G will give me 2 gigabytes worth of swap. Then go ahead, press enter again, and it says that we have created a new partition, 2 of type extended and a size of 2 gigabytes. Now we'll want to go ahead and change the type here of this partition on 2. So we'll type the T command, and then it's going to ask you for what partition number. Default's 2, but I'm going to type in 2 anyway. It's asking for a hex code now. So if you don't know the hex code, you can get a list by typing in capital L, and it gives you all the hex values and what they actually mean here. So I want 82, which is the Linux swap. So I'm going to type in 82. And now it says that it has changed the type of partition extended to the Linux swap /Solaris here. So that's perfect. We'll go ahead and write our changes by doing a W and then enter. So after you've done this, you have actually partitioned your storage disk to however we have set it up here, which is a Linux partition and a Linux swap partition right after it. So make sure that you are ready for these changes. You could easily mess up your SSD or hard disk at this point after you write it. So I know that everything's good with mine, so I'm going to hit W, and it says the partition table has been altered, and it's syncing the disks, so this is perfect. It's finished its thing. Next, after writing our changes and creating our partitions, we'll want to format them using mkfs.ext4 /dev /SDA1, and you can see everything has gone through smoothly here. It created a file system and has formatted our partition successfully. So the next thing we'll do is make the swap partition by doing mkswap /dev /SDA2. SDA1 was for the Linux partition, and SDA2 was going to be our Linux swap partition. So after you've put this command in, we can hit enter, and it tells you that it's setting up the swap space, and the size is 2 gigs is what we allocated. It gives you an ID here of that partition. Then we will turn on swap by doing swap on, again, dev SDA2, and that should have turned on our swap. We had no errors, so seems to be good. Let's go ahead and mount that newly created file system. So we'll mount a dev SDA1 onto /mnt folder. That should be fine here. And then next, what we'll want to do is install the base package using packstrap So pack strap / on the place, the directory where we mounted the file system. So that, and we'll type in base after that. And now we are installing the base package. This might take a little while. Let it run through its packages here for a moment. And after that's done, we'll go ahead and generate an ID for the newly created file system. Let's do that by doing gen fstab dash capital U / mnt, two angle brackets here, again / mnt / etc etc fstab. Go ahead and hit enter. Looks like we got no errors. Now let's go ahead and change the root folder to the new file system. We'll do that by doing arch -ch root / space / mnt. And now that we've changed into a new root folder, we'll go ahead and set the time zone by doing the following. Link here, ln space -sf. We'll do user / user / share zone info. The region, you can go ahead and autofill these by doing tab or if you tab if you want to see what's available. So once I've gotten this far in the user share zone info directory, if you do tab you'll see all the different available time zones here, or I should say areas for time zones. You got Africa, America, all they're in alphabetical order here. I will go ahead under the US folder for myself. You can select whatever that you need, and then it's gonna, next is a city. If I do tab, you can go ahead and see the different, well, these aren't actually cities, but it seems like they're time zones or states. So I will do Eastern for myself. Then I will do a space and do the /etc /local time. Once we've done that, then we'll run the HW clock sys to HC. Oh, I did that wrong because I needed to put 2 dashes in here. And which all that command does is generate a time adjust file. We'll then uncomment a locale that is suitable for us. You can look this up for the territory that you live in, or just use the one like I will for American English. So let's go ahead and open up vi /etc /locale.gen. Make sure you type that in all correct here. We don't want to mess something up. And if you did, you'll get a file similar to this where we can scroll through. As you can see, there is a bunch of different locales available. We want the English one specifically for the US, so I'm just going to go down to English here, find it. I'm looking, oh, I went too far here. Let's go back up. Let's see, ENUS, perfect. I'll do the ENUS UTF-8. This will work for me, so I'll just uncomment that. All I did was press X whenever I got to the right row that I needed, just to get rid of the pound sign, and then I'll do the :W to go ahead and write my changes. It says down here, it acknowledges that I went ahead and wrote my changes, so then I'll do :Q to quit out of VI here. Then the next command that we want to run is the locale-gen, and you'll see it's generating the locales, and it specifically said the one that we went ahead and uncommented. It says generation complete, so that's great. Next, let's go ahead and add the keyboard layout to the, let's do VI. So we're opening up another file here. Actually, I think we're creating a file. So /etc/ I did tab there, but let's see, VC. So it's v console.conf. So this file doesn't exist. We're creating it. Go ahead, put a key map in here. You can look up key maps, but I'm going to use the DE-Latin key map. And once I have this in here, I'm going to go ahead again, write my changes, :W, and quit out, so :Q. After I've written my changes, then we'll create a host name file so the system knows our host name. We can do this by doing VI in the etc folder under host name. Again, this is a new file, and name the host name whatever you like, just make note of it, because similar entries will go into the host file so the system knows how you want the host name for your network to look like. I'm just going to go ahead, insert SavvyNick for my host name. Once I've done that, I'm going to write my changes and quit out of here. And then we'll go to a different file, the host file. This one does exist, so VI space /etc/hosts. And here it exists, but nothing's in it, so we'll go ahead and add a couple new lines here so the system understands the local network. So I will use 127.0.0.1 for my local host. I'm going to put tabs here between the subnets that I enter and local host preceding it. So we'll do : :1 here, and then again local host. I'm just going to keep those on the same line. You might have to do tab twice there. And then 127.0.1.1. I'll put the SavvyNick host name that I used, and just do local domain after it, and my host name again. So after you got that in, go ahead and write the changes, quit out of that host file. And now let's go ahead and set a password for the root user. You can do that by doing the passwd command. It's going to ask for a new password. Go ahead and enter a password for the root user and make sure to confirm it. Once it's confirmed, it says the password has been updated successfully. After that, we're almost done here. We're going to install a bootloader of our choice. So I like using grub, and that's what I'll go ahead and install. So first thing, we'll have to download the grub package so we can go ahead and install grub on this system. We can do that by doing pacman dash capital S and then grub. Make sure you put your spaces in between those. It's asking us if we want to proceed with this installation. Yeah, that's fine. It's going to retrieve some packages here and install. Well, basically just pull down grub for us, and then we'll install it. And let's check if we got grub now. So if we do grub -- help with a space in between those. Oh, I was wrong there. You can't use the help for whatever reason. It's not a command. Instead, we want let's make sure we have the grub install command. So you can do this by just grub -I, and we do install. I just tabbed and it automatically filled that in for me. So where do we want to install grub? We want to install it on dev SDA. So not a specific partition, but the overall disk here. Go ahead and do that command, and now it's saying the default is the i386-PC platform. It says the installation was finished and no error was reported. You can also do grub -install let's see. We can do help here. Perfect. That's what I missed. If you do grub dash install and then dash dash help, that'll give you a list of switches that you can use, and one of those switches is dash dash target equals a target, and it gives you all the different architectures available for the grub target platform. So you can see some stuff like ARM core boot, ARM EFI, different types of i386s, PowerPC, a lot of different architectures here that you can use. The default was fine for me, so I've already installed it now on disk SDA. So I'll go ahead and I should be able to change directories to the boot grub folder, and it looks like it exists. And if we do ls, perfect, i386-PC is installed as our target, and we see a few files here. Let's go ahead and generate a standard config file for grub. Make sure to install some kind of a default config file for grub. We can do this by using the grub-mkmake config command, and we'll put that into grub.cfg. Make sure again that is in the boot grub directory, so it's generating a file now. As you can see, that was in boot grub, and you can see now if I do ls, we have a grub.config file. Now you're ready to go ahead and exit out of here. This will take you back to the live Arch Linux disk that you had running. So go ahead and unmount that after you've exited from the root environment. You mount dash capital R, and we mounted it on MNT. So if you do /MNT enter here, it'll unmount it. I had no errors, so great. And finally, what we can do is a reboot, and it should reboot into our new Arch Linux base system here. So give this a few moments here. And it looks like this is working properly. You can see that it had Arch Linux there. It's booting in, starting up a few things here. And here we go, Savvy Nick for our host name here, and we can finally log in as the root user. So if I do root and whatever password that you chose for root. Oh, login incorrect. Let's try again here. Probably typed that password in wrong. There we go. This time I got it. So congratulations, you've successfully installed Arch Linux on your computer. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please like, comment, and subscribe below. We'll probably install some sort of a desktop environment for this Arch Linux system at some point in the near future. If you would like to see this, please let me know which desktop environment you would like me to work on installing. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this.